Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia. Welcome back. So this time I am picking up where I left off in doing some work on the seam. I have already started on this side, what I'm calling the right module. So I've got more polyfiber glued in place up to about there. The rest of this I'm not going to glue in place. I'll just kind of use the white glue and then build it up. But I've got this area pretty well done, and you can see that on each side it overhangs the actual seam a little bit, so that when I pull it together it should compress and I should get, you know, a little bit of a ridge of material right there, but it should look pretty good and hide the seams. Over on the other side I have done staining and again, some additional polyfiber. So once I get this done and I put it together, you know, I'm in pretty good shape. So I came in and colored the rock all the way down here to give me, you know, some continuity. Then at the top, and you can still see some little blebs of glue because I just did this not that long ago. That'll dry here after a while. I've got more poly fibers in place, same here and then over here. And once this dries, that seam overhangs on both sides as well. And when I get it compressed, it should make the seam pretty much disappear. Down through here, you know, I had the little parchment or wax paper in place, so I should get a fairly tight seam along this area and down here, because I really pressed the sculpt mold in place between the two. So as long as I'm careful, once I put it back together, there will be a seam there, but I don't think it's going to be too visible. So what I'm going to do in this one now, once this all dries, is I will put the layout back together again. I will test the standard gauge for O, make sure that it runs over the seam in the modules fairly well. I've still got to do the other side by taking it apart and filing it, but I'll do that later. Then I'm going to come back in and excuse my movement here. Once this is together again, then I'm going to come back in and I'll stain this area here, and I'll do detail work to you know, make the seam as, pardon the pun, seamless as I can. And then I will use scenic materials and trees and stuff to kind of hide this, and I'll put in a little bit more of the polyfiber on top to kind of overhang and do some of those things. But I'll get this part done fairly soon, and then we'll go on to some other stuff. So scenery begins for detail work. That's the kind of stuff I really have fun with. So more to come. So before I pull these two together, which I will do here shortly, the scenery is dry, it's firm, the stuff's not coming off, so that's good. I am going to come over here and I'm going to do the filing on the track like I did on the other side. Just kind of bevel the inside edge just a little bit, and then I'll put everything back together again. You can still see kind of how I've got my little two-track staging yard underneath the layout here. Came apart really well, so I'm quite happy with that. So I will take care of the filing, and then I will put the layout back together again. Maybe do time lapse on that. That's easy. You know, everything is looking pretty good. Yeah, I really enjoy this layout. It's being a fun build. Anyway, let me get this done and get it back together again so I can run some trains and then do some more staining over it. Well, about 30 minutes since the last video segment. Layout is back together, and I'm running the O standard gauge. I'm going to let that train run for a few minutes, make sure I don't have any issues. So far it's sounding a lot quieter going across the module seams in the inside. It's running nice and smooth, so I'll let it run for a while. Then I'll bring out my F unit and its train, run it the other direction, see how well it tracks. And then a little bit later I will get the On30 running and get some trains running on this scenery as well. I haven't run trains through this yet, so I want to see how that's going to look. So making some progress. Nice way to spend a Tuesday evening. I've been running this train for about 5 minutes and no issues. You can hear it as it's going over the switches underneath. Everything seems to be tracking well. Yeah, I'm a happy camper. And everything went through the tunnel with the new tunnel liner as well, and that worked pretty slick. All right, I think it's time to get the On30, get a train running on here for that. You hear the standard gauge running below the narrow gauge lines. It's been running a few more minutes since the last video segment and doing pretty good. Let's jump over to the other side and see how it does through High Point. Nice and smooth through that seam. Happy camper. Nice. And I haven't even cleaned the track recently on this. With all the construction I've been going on here, we're running pretty well. There that goes. Get an idea of everything here. And into the new tunnel liner. All right, time to do some other things. I'm just gonna let the trains run for a while. I still need to get the boards for the fascia. I'm really hoping I can get that done this week. But right now, you know what, I'm just having fun watching trains. Oh yeah, I'll show you. So here's how the seam looks. Still got some work to do, you know, in this area, and I'll do some ground cover there, and obviously a little bit here. But when everything is together, it looks pretty good. A little bit of carving, and then some coloring should hold this all together quite well. So I'm happy with that. Let's go on the other side and see how that seam looks. So pretty good over here too. I'm happy with how that poly fiber blends in. Probably do a little bit of more detail work just where it's coming down. Let number 5 go past. So on the cliff face, you can still see some of it, and that's okay. I get down here, I'll be able to kind of camouflage this part of it with ground cover. Over here you can pick it up on the top, but again, this is all going to be ground cover. In fact, I probably should have done the same thing that I did up there down here last night. Then when you kind of follow that down, it's really hard to see where that seam is until you get down here. And this is going to be covered with ground cover too. So this is getting hid quite well. I'm pleased with how that turned out. Using that baking parchment makes a big difference to be able to get seams fairly visible. All right, I'm going to enjoy watching some trains run for a little bit, and then I'm going to get started doing some more. Not sure what I'm going to do. Yeah, I am. I'll probably take care of this yet, so that'll be the next thing after I watch trains. Well, I'm wrapping up Tuesday night. I enjoyed watching the trains run for a while, and I did come back and added in some material to cover the seam at the top. I've got this little piece of the parchment paper under there just so that the glue sets and it doesn't flow into the seam itself. I'll have trees pretty close to this, probably actually in there. There'll be a tree by the time I get done. So I'll have all of this covered in trees, and I won't put any more ground cover on, at least in this area or up in this area, until I get trees built so that I can start to kind of go from here and I'll work my way that way. Now I can come in with the polyfiber that's on the back. I can spray it down with some the isopropyl alcohol, put a little dilute white glue in there, and then just add some ground cover so that I've got the look from behind the trees, kind of like what I've got done here, in place here already, so that when I put the trees in, all I have to do is more of the just under the trunks and the foreground. So that'll be something that I will be doing. But let's see if I can do anything else on this video before I wrap this one up. Last thing I'm going to do on this video is stain this area. I will get the stains out and do a little bit here and see if I can reasonably match up the colors. Not sure. We'll see here. Well, Thursday evening after work, and I've been out here for a little while, I've got the staining done. And I think it turned out pretty well. I was able to capture a lot of the colors reasonably close coming across in the different areas up top. A little bit less down here, a little bit more carving that I did. I probably did too much carving in this area compared to over here. But that's going to be covered by trees and brush for the most part anyway. So I'm okay with that. This looks pretty nice. Once it dries, it'll dry a little bit duller and a little bit lighter tone. So I'm happy with how this has turned out. There's the seam right in there. You can see it, but it's not overly obvious. I'll come back in and I'll do some ground cover on top just to kind of hide it there. Probably a little tuft of grass right in here to hide that little cavity. And I've got some paper towel wads up there, so that's even better. That'll kind of give me a better color once I get rid of it. Yeah, it looks a little better. And then down here, like I said, I'm going to have a couple of good-sized trees at least kind of coming up right here, which will hide most of the seam. I will have ground vegetation covering most of this, and then some bushes and some other stuff which will hide a lot of that anyway, so that's okay. Some of you might wonder why I didn't start the fascia down here and arch it over. One, because I didn't want to. And it doesn't fit with, again, the geology that I've got here. I've got a fairly steep, straight up and down cliff. I'm kind of continuing it across, and then it's starting to even out and level out over here so I can get some trees. If I'd cut this over here, I would extend this, the cliff would be okay, but then coming up and into an area where I've got a lot of flat, to my eye it just wouldn't look that good. This looks fine, and it's going to be covered by probably a tree right here, kind of extending out and kind of covering this.
tree right here covering up and blocking the seam. And these trees are going to be, at least 10, 12 inches tall right in this area. So a lot of vegetation going in on this part when I get to it. But that's going to do it for this video. So next time, more scenery work. So keep having fun on your layouts. Until next time.